Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is pre-match build-up showtime with Liverpool taking on Everton tomorrow night at Anfield in the Premier League. It is the Amazon Prime Derby. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments down below. It also means we're going to be kicking off at the rather bizarre time of 8:15. I'm sadly not going to be able to go to the game, so it doesn't affect me hugely. I'm actually not even going to be able to watch the game, which is a little bit annoying and does actually mean that there won't be any post-match video, so sorry in advance for that. But if you are going to the game, let me know if that's affected your plans in any way. Obviously, you don't really think about a 15-minute shift making a huge difference, but when you consider trains, travel and stuff like that, it can make all the difference in terms of how fans get there and whether or not they can actually get home after the game. So if you do have any thoughts about it, shout me down in the comments below, because I do find the whole thing very interesting. But moving on to the actual match itself, the party line from Liverpool over the last couple of days has kind of been that we are treating this in a way like every other game, not in a complacent way. Jurgen Klopp hasn't been coming out in his press conference and being like, Everton are rubbish and we're not really bothered and we haven't done any tactical work or anything like that. But the party line has kind of been that we're not going to look at this as this absolutely massive game. We're trying to play it down. We're trying to just say that we're going to treat Everton like we have done every other opponent in the Premier League. We're not going to go out flying into tackles, trying to turn it into this huge occasion and this absolute bloodbath of a football match. We're just going to try and do our same usual thing. And I'm actually interested in whether or not this is a good idea, because this has been the party line for Liverpool a couple of times over the last few years in the derby. You know, I'm looking back to both of the games last year where it was clear that Everton were the inferior side. It was clear that we were so much better, and if Everton were any other team wearing any different colour, we probably would be beating them. But I think what actually tends to happen is they almost come out with an extra 5%, and that's not to say that the Liverpool players aren't trying, but I think they almost approach the game in the wrong way and are therefore caught off guard by the way Everton approach it. You know, they do snap into the tackles, they do go flying in because they feel like they've got something to prove to the fans. Liverpool players have got nothing to prove at the moment, but Everton are on a poor run of form, and I think Marco Silva will know going into this game that even if maybe Everton don't get a result, if they come flying out in this match, they go into those tackles, they are strong, they are hard hitting, they press high, and they look like they are giving it their absolute all, then that will certainly buy him a little bit of time in the hot seat, because God knows he needs that right now. He's teetering on the edge of being the next manager to get the sack, and I, for one, am actually a little bit pleased that he didn't get it before this game. I would have been fuming if they were coming into this with the new manager bounce. Obviously, that's no reflection on my opinion of Marco Silva. I don't think he's the worst manager in the world, but we've seen it before. I think it was a couple seasons ago when Ronald Koeman got sacked. Sam Allardyce came in right before the derby, and Everton got that lift, got that extra 10%, and it obviously didn't do us any favours because we came away with a measly draw. So hopefully we won't be seeing any of that new manager bounce or anything like that in the game that on Wednesday night. But I do think we need to match their level. We need to treat this as a game that is a little bit special, and that might mean that for the first 15 minutes pressing a little bit more than we would against a mid-table, lower-table Premier League side. You know, normally we might feel our way into these games. We'll be expecting to have a little bit more of the ball and try some possession-based build-up. I think we've got to accept that Everton aren't going to approach the game in that way, and as a result, we've got to adapt to that. We've got to treat this like a Big Six game where we do come flying out the blocks. We absolutely go at them for the first half an hour, and we try and get that early goal that sets us on the way to victory. So team news going into this game, obviously the big story that broke after the Brighton match was that we wouldn't be able to play Alisson Becker in this game. I'm not entirely sure everyone's too upset about that because, of course, based on the numbers alone this season, ADRIAN has had a better campaign so far. He's got more clean sheets for starters because Alisson has 0 and ADRIAN has 2, which isn't great, but it is better than nothing. I mean, in terms of multiples, he's got infinite times more clean sheets than Alisson Becker has got so far this campaign. And I think now that he's had that stint in the side, people are a little bit less nervous about him coming in. And obviously when he did come on against Brighton, I don't think he was at his best, although I think some of that is down to the fact he didn't have a warm-up. He wasn't expecting to come on, and it was at a crucial time in the game where Brighton were buoyed by the sending off. You can argue all day about whether or not they should have been allowed that goal that pulls them back into the game, but they instantly start throwing absolutely everything at our goal. And I think you've, at the end of the day, just got to credit ADRIAN with the fact that even though he did look a bit shaky from time to time, and I think there were a few nerves that maybe the ADRIAN people thought we bought from West Ham was was finally making an appearance after his fantastic run earlier on in the season. But I think the fact that he keeps the goals out and he keeps the 3 points in Liverpool's hands has to be commended. And I think the fact that he's had that run in the team, he looks so much better. He's now settled with the back line as well. They know what to expect from him. They know when he wants the ball and when they'd be better off just launching the ball forward. They know where he's going to play his passes and send his throws and stuff like that. And that means we're now not worried about it going into the derby. And some people have tried to make stuff out of it. Mark Lawrenson has said that he thinks that ADRIAN might be the weak link for this game. Personally, I don't think there is a way that Everton can really target him. He hasn't got an obvious weakness. He's clearly not as good a goalkeeper as Alisson Becker. Otherwise, he would be the first choice goalie. But he hasn't got a clear weakness like a post that you can always aim for, or an area you can put the ball in for crosses where he might try and come for it, but he's not always going to get there and stuff like that. Generally, he does the basics reasonably well, and if you want to beat him, you've just got to be really good and hit some good shots at the goal, but that's what they'll be trying to do anyway, so I don't think it makes a huge difference him being in goal for Liverpool. Apart from that, in terms of other fitness news, Joel Matip won't be available once again. Sadly, Jurgen Klopp was sort of saying in his press conference that he needs a little bit more time. He hasn't quite recovered in the way that we were hoping, so essentially crossing the expectations there. I don't think we will be seeing him for the next few weeks at least, maybe if at all, over this December fixture period, which is obviously gutting because we could have done with an extra centre-back at the bare minimum, let alone one as good as Joel Matip. But of course, he definitely won't be available for this game. Apart from that, Jurgen Klopp has said there are no fresh injury concerns after the game against Brighton, which is always good to hear. As we get into this period where we're just playing endless games, it's always good to know that the players are coming through unscathed. And while there is maybe a shout for rotation, and there certainly is further down the line, a derby in this context, with so much on the line, with this Premier League campaign mattering so much to the Liverpool players and fans, I don't think this is really the time and the place for rotation. I think we should be going with our first choice 11. So speaking of the first choice 11, here's how I think we're actually going to line up for the match. Obviously, it's ADRIAN in goal, and as I said, we are nowhere near as worried as we would have been had he not already had that fantastic stint earlier on in the season, and I don't think Everton will find any way possible to capitalise on it apart from just trying to be good. But he will be between the sticks for Liverpool. Ahead of him, I think it's definitely going to be Virgil van Dijk and Dejan Lovren. I thought Lovren had another really good game against Brighton. People tried to criticise him for the goal that they scored because of the way he lets the ball over his shoulder and stuff like that, but by and large I thought he was excellent. Last 10 minutes he really helped to keep the ball out, flying into tackles and stuff like that, and I think the criticism that he got for the goal was just a case of, people are always looking for someone to blame. They can't just look at a goal and say, you know what, yeah, fair enough, or these things happen. It's always got to be someone's fault, and when Dejan Lovren is on the pitch, by and large it's going to be his. Sometimes he is at fault. I don't think he was at the weekend. I think he had a really good game, and I have absolutely no concerns about him partnering Virgil van Dijk, the second best player in the world, although I think we all really know who should have won that award. I'm kind of gutted that Virgil van Dijk didn't get the Ballon d'Or, partially, or if mainly, because it would have been fantastic right before kickoff in a derby match for your centre-half to walk out holding that nice gold trophy that says that he's the best player in the world, show it off to the fans, maybe, do a little jog over to the away end and show them it, just so they know exactly where they stand and where we stand and who the best player in the world is. I mean, yeah, Messi's fantastic. Van Dijk had a better 2019. That's all I'll say about it for now, but it would have been nice to see him win the award, I think it's fair to say. So Virgil van Dijk, the best centre-half in the world, at least will be partnering Dejan Lovren at centre-back. I think it's probably fairly safe to assume. The full-backs as well are a fairly safe bet. They're going to need a rest at some point. Trent Alexander-Arnold looks all right, but Robertson is getting close to his last legs, and I think in an ideal world with 3-0 up against Everton with half an hour to play, and we can bring James Milner or someone like that on, because I think Robbo needs a rest at some point going into this really difficult period of fixtures. But as I said, this is not the time and the place for it, so I think he'll be starting at left back. Moving on to the midfield, I think we keep the same one that we had against Brighton. There doesn't really need to be any changes. Henderson did a reasonably good job at the number 6 role. Gini Wijnaldum was fine. Oxlade-Chamberlain was fine. And I think you could argue, because it's a derby, we maybe go a bit more defensive. We bring in James Milner for Oxlade-Chamberlain or something like that. But obviously Everton are an inferior team at the end of the day. That the table doesn't lie on that front, and anyone who's watched them can tell you that they are absolutely nowhere near Liverpool's level at the moment. So we don't need to go any more defensive. There's possibly a shout for Keita, and I think there's maybe a fitness thing to do with that with Oxlade-Chamberlain. Obviously he's still recovering, although we're getting, I think, closer and closer to the end of that period now where we have to consider his knee injury in terms of how many games he can play, and it becomes more just about him playing himself back into the absolutely fantastic form he was in before he got that injury. But I think it's possible we see Naby Keita. Personally, I'd quite like to see him, But Jurgen Klopp seems to trust Oxlade-Chamberlain just that little bit more at the moment, so I think it's probably likely that he will start alongside Henderson and Gini van Aldum in the midfield. And then the front three speaks for itself: Mo Salah, Sadio Mane, Roberto Firmino down the middle. So taking a little look at Everton then, in terms of injury news, they're actually doing all right. They've got Theo Walcott to come back for this game, which will be a little bit of a boost for them. They are, of course, still without Andre Gomez, who suffered that horrible injury against Tottenham Hotspur, which, if anything, it sounds rude to say, but it is a bit of a boost for Liverpool, because when you look back to the derby at Anfield last season, which was a very strange game, and I think a lot of that is lost because of the Origi goal. That's all we ever really talk about. We don't consider the 96 minutes that came before it, and I think it's fair to say that it was a fairly even contest, and up to that point 0-0 was definitely a fair result on the balance of things, and Andre Gomez was potentially the man of the match. I thought he was fantastic in the centre of the park, a great creative outlet for Everton going forward, and a very combative midfielder as well. So it's a bit of a boost for Liverpool to see him out. And when you look at the midfields that Everton have fielded since his injury, there is always a little bit of an imbalance. There's always something missing that I think Andre Gomez would have provided. I mean, looking at their loss against Leicester, obviously there's no way that Marco Silva would have been sacked after that because of the circumstances of the loss, and also the fact that the players did try as well. It's clear that he hasn't lost the dressing room. A lot of it was made of this after the game. They were still putting in the effort. They were still chasing after the ball and stuff like that. The issue is there's just no organisation. The issue is, try as hard as they might, they're just rubbish at the moment, Everton. Like, you look at the starting lineups and you think half the time it looks like a formation and a setup and a starting 11 that they've just never played before. They played this bizarre 3-4-3 thing that just did not work at all in the game against Leicester City. And there are times when they've got plenty of bodies back, they're all chasing around, but the spaces are still there. I mean, Leicester were able to just walk through their defence at times, and that gives me hope as well, because if Liverpool do want to play possession football at any point during this game, the options are going to be there. Even if Everton do want to pack the box, get men behind the ball, park the bus, they just don't have the tactical intelligence to do it, even if the effort is there. They're just a bit naff, and the only thing that does concern me is the fact that they do have Richarlison, and even though when sometimes they are terrible, he scored against Leicester and he's pretty much the only goal scorer in the side. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he's got a goal at Liverpool against Liverpool yet in an Everton shirt, so he's probably due one, and the fans will be hoping he gets one, and he certainly will be hoping he gets one. Marco Silva will certainly be hoping he gets one as well. But I think the promising thing is the fact that they went ahead against Leicester. They had an opportunity there to dig deep and grind out what would have been a brilliant result and would have set them up really nicely for the derby. But things just didn't go their way. They were gradually worn down. And yes, that it was the finest of margins for the actual goal. But at the end of the day, those margins just aren't going Everton's way at the moment. And the way they scored the goal, the ball that's played through it is fantastic for Iheanacho to go through that defence. But Yerry Mina should be cutting it out, and he just collapses with the ball behind him. Then Mason Holgate just gets sent for the echo by Iheanacho, who cuts onto his stronger foot, so it should be obvious he's going to do that. And this is what I mean by players who try hard, like Mason Holgate, and we all know about him. He loves a game against Liverpool. He is a scrappy fella. He does love a bit of a fight, and he will give his absolute all. But they're just not good enough at the end of the day. And if Liverpool can get their heads around that and take advantage of that, while also acknowledging that this isn't going to be like any other game, this is going to be a derby match. The crowd is going to get behind you. You've got to use the momentum that the crowd is giving you. Use the momentum that Everton are giving you. If they want to fly into tackles, if they want to chase the ball down, take advantage of the spaces that are left behind. Take advantage of the fact they might feel under pressure on the ball, and you can win it back, and you can press, and you can create chances that way. Take advantage of the occasion and show that we can rise to these types of challenges, because we haven't really seen that enough under Jurgen Klopp. I don't think in the derbies. It's maybe the one criticism that we can have of him, and some of it's to do with the personnel as well. We don't have a Steven Gerrard or a Jamie Carragher anymore. We have a Trent Alexander-Arnold, but he's in a position at right back where he can't quite be maybe as influential as Stevie G was able to be. But I think if the whole squad just gets their head round the nature of the game, then we've got every chance of not just winning this game, but winning it reasonably comfortably and setting ourselves up for, yet another win in our race to the Premier League title. So yeah, that is all for today's video. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, as always, you know what to do. Hit the like button down there. Hit that subscribe button there if you're new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. Don't forget to follow @LiveFocus on Twitter. And sadly, I won't be here tomorrow for the post-match reaction, but I will be back for the pre-match build-up for the game against Bournemouth at the weekend. Until then, bye for now.